Hey, I'm Rob from Your Gear Sucks. I want to thank everyone who's been watching the videos so far, and we're going to be doing a lot more. I just need you to subscribe, and once we get to 500, I get to do more with this channel and more with the gear. And we're going on our third video about the Spark products, probably our final one for a little while. We're going to do a lot more with other gear in the future, and you're here because you want to gear better with the gear that you have already. Now, today, I'm doing a little demo. We're going to see how we can turn our existing guitar amplifiers into a cabinet for your Spark. Now, those who have been paying attention to Spark news know that there is a cabinet that got released by Spark. It's 140 watts. It's pretty sizable, it's cool looking, and it's made specifically for your Spark products, for the Go, the Mini, and the 40. So if you have one of those and you're considering the Spark cabinet, try this first. And I'm not just trying to dissuade anyone from going with the cabinet product. I think it's awesome. I think it's a good complement to the series of amps because they've been getting smaller and people have been calling for a cab. So that's good. But you can also use your existing guitar amplifier as a cabinet speaker for your Spark, and I'm going to show you two ways how to do it. And a bit of it involves going through the app and adjusting things in the app, and some of it can just be connecting straight in. So let's get to it. We're going to start off with the gear list here. I have my tablet here, which is going to allow me to adjust things and show you guys with the overhead camera what I'm doing there. We have a Spark Mini, one of the many that I have in the studio. But I like to bring this around because it's good for solo stuff and it's good as a preamp on stage. And here we have a your typical Fender tube amp, but this can work with whatever you have, whether it be a solid state amp, whether it be a tube amp, whether it be a modeling amp, you can still do similar things. And I have it mic'd up with a 57 over here so that you guys can hear a bit more real world results. Now, connecting the two, I'm going to switch to overhead here. Let me just do that real quick. Connecting the two, I have your typical, let me just turn the amp on standby first before I start plugging and unplugging. So, as you've seen in my other videos, we have an 1/8 inch, and that's going to dual mono quarter jack out, right? Left and right. So stereo to left and right. This goes in the headphone jack in the back, and we're going to use the left side of this to go into the amp. Now this cable, you can find it in the link down below, and you can see what it does in the first video that we did on this channel. Actually, it's the second video using your Spark amp on stage. So we're going to plug this into the amplifier. Now, there's two ways you can do it. The way that I prefer to do it, and this is only if you have this feature on your amp, and let me switch to our side camera here and take you over to the amp. Now, this amp is your typical traditional tube amp. It has your inputs 1 and 2. It's got multi-channel here. But the thing I love most about this amp is it's got an effects loop. Here it's preamp out and then power amp in. Now, explaining a little bit about this, I'm going to plug the left side into the power amp in. Now, most of you might know this already, but let me switch back. Most of you might know this already, but these are called combo amps. They're called combo amps for a reason. The reason is it's a combination of two components that make up your typical amp, right? It has your preamp section and your power amp section. So think of this side as a film strip and this side as the projector, right? Both are needed to see a film on screen. In the preamp section creates all the color and the tone shaping of the sound, and the power amp section powers it out through the speakers. Now, a lot more goes into the way an amp can sound, right? But since we're using the Spark Mini, as a preamp, we want to bypass the preamp section on this amp. And so that's why we go over to, let me go back to the camera. You can see preamp out, right? So that's basically all the signal that's coming out of the preamp section. It's going to the preamp out section, but we're not using that, so we're bypassing it. We're going straight into the power amp, right? So left into the power amps. And this is the way, the reason I like to do it this way, it's because, let me switch back to camera 1. The reason I like to do it this way is because this is a preamp, right? So we just need to power this. It's effectively using this amplifier as a cabinet instead of a full combo amp, right? We're bypassing the preamp section. And that will make it effectively a big speaker for your Spark. Now, because we're doing that, all the volume control is on your Spark, right? Now we're gonna do a little bit of a test here, so let me flip this back on. Take it off of standby. We'll get a trusty guitar here. It's my favorite guitar, by the way. I built it. Look at that, so shiny. I call her Chromio. So Chromio is gonna help us out here. And of course, I've got these wireless connections because I don't like wires. I hate wires, and I'll link to these in the description so that you guys can pick them up. But I swear by these. These ones are Amoon, but I also have Guitaria and a bunch of different others. They all come under different names. I'll put up my preferred ones for you guys in the description. Okay, so we're gonna do a basic clean test here. Let me switch it to position 5. Now I got this coming in a different sound channel so that you guys will be able to hear it clean. It's not coming out of my microphone up here, but you can see it's pretty loud. It's pretty loud. Now on the Spark, let's switch to overhead. You can see that I have it, if I can, on about halfway up. The volume's on halfway. Maybe we'll switch to the handheld here. We'll see it better. So you can see volume's about halfway, and it is loud already. And this is just the clean setting here, right? Not sure I want to go any louder on that just because I can see on my recording device that we might be clipping a little bit. Try not to. Try and keep it clean. It's hard for me to monitor in real time though because we're recording this in real time. Okay, so I have that up about halfway. I'm going to turn it down to a quarter and go to like a bit more of a metal sound. Let's see, so you guys can hear how that sounds. Switch to position 1. I'm gonna crank it. This might distort, so my apologies if it does. Bring it down a little bit. It's sounding amazing. Those power tubes are getting engaged. It's sounding loud. It's clean. Obviously, this preset has a noise gate on it, so we're getting really clean sound when I don't have anything on. But so that is going into the effects loop in. So this amp, on this amp, it's called preamp out, and power amp in. On your amp, it might be called send and return, effects send and return. It can be called a whole bunch of different things, but they all do the same thing. They create a little insertion point between the preamp section and the power amp section, and it allows you to plug things in. Now, originally those things were meant, let me just put Chromio down. Originally, the effects loop is meant for time-based effects. So all your effects that have to deal with delay or reverb, things that you don't want the preamp section to distort, right? So essentially what that allows for is that all your drive pedals and your crunch and your distortions, they go into your regular input, and then your time-based effects go into your effects loop. That's traditionally how that's used, but because it allows you to bypass the preamp in here, you can use the Spark as the preamp. Now, in order to get it done effectively, you need to make sure that it's set to mono in your app, right? So if I go to overhead here, let me see here. Again, 5. There we go. So if I go to overhead here, you can see right now I have it on. And all these presets I've uploaded to the cloud, they're all under like P6. So if you search for P6, you're going to find a bunch of them. Some of them are my busking settings. Some of them are just like my studio settings that I like to use. But in order to set your amp to mono out, that way the thing coming out, the signal coming out of the left of this side is going to be all the signal. The left and right, it's all going to be combined to one and sent through both channels. Anyway, to set it to mono, you go here on the app and you tap on that once and you're going to see something called HP line out. When you hit that, it's going to ask you mono or stereo. Obviously you want to select mono, and we can go back, and we are now back in the app. Fantastic. And that is essentially it. Now the downsides of doing this is this whole preamp section of the amp is that you're now bypassing this section here, right? So you're not going to get volume control and be able to tweak things with the knobs, because these are part of the preamp section. Since we're bypassing the preamp section, you won't get to use that. That's typical on some amps. This one is a Fender Hot Rod Deluxe FSR Fender Special Run, as you can tell by the silver Tolex on it, because it's got a special speaker in it. I've also modded this with the Frommel mods, which makes it sound great. And it's an amazing workhorse studio tube amplifier. That's why I brought it out today. Your typical Fender with effects in return. So that's the downside of just going into the power amp section. It's just a cab. It's not going to give you much tone control. But the upside is you use all the tone control in the app. Your EQs and all that kind of stuff, you get to use it. And on this particular setting here, we're using an orange head to get the sound that we want. Now, I said there are two ways that you can use your guitar amplifier as a cabinet. Now, the other way is straight into the input here. Now, there are a couple ways to do that. I'm going to show you a way that's most effective, from my opinion, and it allows you to, adjust the sound however you want. But because this is a preamp, it's kind of weird that you're going to be using this as a preamp going into a preamp, right? So what you want to do are a couple things in the app that's going to allow you to be very effective with it, and essentially use this as a pedal board, right? Because if you have a guitar amp that only has an input and it doesn't have an effects loop, you're going to be doing that with your pedal board anyway, right? So essentially it turns this from a preamp and pedals into just a pedal board. Stick with me. Okay, so let's put the guitar amp on standby since we are switching inputs, right? So step number one, obviously our left side, we're going to go into, I think we can catch that on the overhead. We're going to go into, no, we can't. Can't catch that on the overhead, so we're going to go into input 1, right? So that's your typical guitar input. I'm going to turn the volume all the way down before I take it off of standby, because you never know what happens. So we're off of standby now. It's going straight in. Now, you got to keep this in mind. Everything that the Spark was doing in that last demonstration with the guitar, it's now going to be affected by all, the knobs up here. The drive knob, the treble, bass, middle, everything. I'm going to put everything to north. And put the reverb all the way down, since we're using this as an effects pedal only. Now, I'm going to switch it back to the clean setting here. let me go to the overhead camera. So I'll show you what I do, what I like to do in the app. Now, a lot of you know how to fool around with the pedals and change them and stuff like this. Did you know that you can disable the amp head? Boom. Now, the amp head, you know, is what creates the amp sound, the coloring of it. But when we disable that, essentially we turn the Spark into a pedal board. And that's exactly the way I like to do it when you use the Spark going straight into an amp. Let's see how that sounds. We'll see how it sounds with the amp head on and with the amp head off. All right. Standby seems off. Okay. Turn the volume up. So now we get volume control on the amp. Turn the volume up on the Spark. Typically, I like to have it at about 75% when I'm going straight in, and that gives us sound. Now, that buzzing is coming from the guitar because of all the lights and stuff. See, when I turn the volume down on the guitar, it's not coming from this setup, right? Just a lot of electronic interference in here. So that's with the amp head turned off, and everything in terms of tone is set to north, set to 12 o'clock. But let's do a little bit of scooping in the middle, up the bass, up the treble. Let's see what that sounds like. It sounds great, love it. Let's turn the presence up a little, get it a little crispier. And you can hear the effects. Effects sound great, and that's all coming from the Spark. So essentially you're using your Spark as a pedal board, not a preamp anymore. If I turn the amp head on, now you can start hearing the problem, because you're now doubling the preamp section. You're adding a modeling onto a regular amp. It sounds kind of weird. Kind of muddy, kind of weird, so let's turn that off. There we go. And of course this works, let me turn the volume down on the amp. Works with your distortions too, your lead. That's loud. Let me turn the volume down to 3 on the amp. Still loud. I hope that's not distorting the mic, but if you were able to hear it, let me turn it all the way down so you can get a better sense of it. Awesome. Love it. Love, 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 love it. And yeah, that's typically how you do that. So again, going into the front, disable the amp head, and you might get a really cool sound out of that. Or if you have the power amp in the preamp section divider, your effects send return, you could do it that way as well. So if you were thinking of getting a cab, Spark cab, maybe try your existing guitar amp first. Again, this works with the solid states, it works with the modeling amps, especially with the modeling amps because you can tweak those quite extensively, and it can work with solid state. You know, and you might not have to spend however much it costs to get a Spark cab this Christmas. Now, all this gear, most of this gear will be available in links down below. I hope you enjoyed the video, and again, I ask you to subscribe to the channel, because if we get about 500, I start to be able to allow it to grow. There are going to be links, affiliate links in the description below for a lot of the gear in the studio and from my previous videos, and that will allow you to purchase what you want. It's not going to cost you any more money, but it sends a bit of money to the channel, which is great for us. And in the future, I have a lot of great videos that I plan to do. In fact, let me switch over to my remote cam here. Okay. Next video, I might do it about the ultimate travel guitar that I just built. I love this thing, by the way, and I'm working on this video currently. Another video I'm going to do is how to create a $10 pedal board, and it sounds a little ridiculous, but it's pretty awesome, and I actually swear by these. I take these with me everywhere because they're so portable and they're so easy to put together, and they cost next to nothing because most people who fool with pedal boards, you know how expensive even just the pedal board is. And of course there's tons of stuff in the studio that I want to show you, and tons of gear, tons of ways I use it, which I plan to show to you going forward. So again, thank you for tuning in to the channel, and thank you for watching the video. Watch my other ones as well, and enjoy your Spark. This will probably be the last Spark video I do for a bit. First three are all Spark related, but who knows? We'll figure that one out as we go, and we'll see you in the next one. Remember, gear better.